Thank you for listening to the Silence So Loud podcast. Today we're going to talk about a couple of different topics. We're going to start out by talking about music. I know we talk about a range of topics here: music, pop culture, sports. But we're going to kind of focus on music. We're definitely going to touch sports at the end of this podcast. But I got a friend of mine that's going to come on the show later on. She went to the Disturbed concert, and she's actually a really big Breaking Benjamin fan. So she's going to call up the show, and we're going to have a good time, my friend Denise. And back whenever I was a kid, some of you may be able to relate. I was a huge Guns N' Roses fan, big Guns N' Roses fan. And I know they released some music last year. They released Hard School and Absurd. But they released a song this week called Perhaps. Pretty good song. Not bad, not great. I may need to listen to it a few more times, but I thought it was a good song. Kind of remind me of Use Your Illusion 2 with Yesterday's. It had that piano type feel. And I know it's not the entire original format of Guns N' Roses. They got Axl, Slash, and Duff, which is kind of like the core. But definitely worth listening to. And I love how music can just take you in so many different directions. I don't know if you've heard the latest about the guy Oliver Anthony. If you haven't heard of him, you're gonna hear of him. He just is a guy that went out in the woods with a guitar, and he did a song, Richmond, North of Richmond, and just is just grabbing online by storm. His video just has gotten so many views, and just kind of like, I guess you would call it like maybe an overnight success. I know that Jamie Johnson showed up at a farmer's market that he was playing at because he just got so overwhelmed with fans. He told everybody, I'm playing at a farmer's market. And they said Jamie Johnson showed up. And I know that John Rich said that he's ready to sign this guy. And I just love how music can do that. I listen to just a wide variety of music. You know, I just listened to the Travis Scott album, Utopia, and I thought it was great. And I listened to country music, and I listened to rock music. I listened to Christian music. I listened to just a wide variety. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about. Like I said, my friend Denise is going to come on the show. She's going to join the Silence So Loud podcast. So I'm looking forward to talking to her. She went to that Disturbed show that I touched on a while back, called them perfect. That's probably a little exaggerated word, but they just sounded like a perfect rock band. And I definitely know that she's a huge Breaking Benjamin fan. So she's going to kind of elaborate on that. And we look forward to talking to her. And once again, I want to thank you for joining the Silence So Loud podcast. All right. Thank you for listening to the Silence So Loud podcast. We have a special guest today. We're going to be talking to Denise. Denise, are you there?
I'm here.
You are here. Right. Thank you for joining the show.
Oh, I'm excited.
We appreciate it. So you listened to the recent podcast where I went to that Disturbed concert with Breaking Benjamin. So just want to get your thoughts on that show, because I realized afterwards that you were at the same concert. So what'd you think about it?
Okay, so I was I a Disturbed fan just by hearing the music on the radio and stuff like that. But I have not stopped listening to Disturbed since the concert. That's how much I was impressed by them. When you were saying that they were perfection, it's literally I had to Shazam the concert to see if the song would come up, because it seems so unreal how on point his vocals were and the sound and everything. It was amazing.
Right. They just seemed like they were this band that just knew how to play perfectly with each other. And like I said, I hate using that word perfect, but they just kept it going, almost like they were recording a live album right there.
That's exactly what it felt like. And that's what I literally did. Because when you see concerts outside, they always, and it's super cold, they just play over it, or they lip sync to it. And that's what it seemed like. Right. That's how awesome it was. And I've literally got my kids listening to Disturbed now, and they're just they're comparing the Sound of Silence with the Garfunkel to this one, and they're like, this one's so much better. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah, my kid was saying the same thing. The Land of Confusion, that's a Genesis song, and he's like, Dad, this one's just way better. He's like, they do it better than like the original. I'm like, yeah, I see what you're saying. So, what do you think about Breaking Benjamin, the opener? Like, were you
Okay,
into
what's
them?
funny? Yeah, no, what's funny is Breaking Benjamin is one of my top three bands ever.
Oh wow.
And I have been to pretty much almost every Breaking Benjamin concert when they come. I did not go to the 98 Rock one because it was kind of funny. We bought the tickets for Disturbed because we saw Breaking Benjamin coming with the other dates. Then we got the tickets and we were like, oh man, we're stuck with these Disturbed tickets, and Breaking Benjamin wasn't on the bill.
Right.
We were like so upset. And then all of a sudden, my husband looks and he's like, I think after the 98 Rock Fest, like, I think that they're going to have Breaking Benjamin come on, and boom, it happened. So I was drawn there for Breaking Benjamin. I love Breaking
Oh, so
Benjamin.
you went mainly for Breaking Benjamin then, like
Yes.
over. Wow, wow.
Yeah,
And
but I turned into a Disturbed fan that night.
see, I was kind of like opposite. Like I knew Breaking Benjamin from hearing them on the radio. Like there were songs that I recognized, but I couldn't tell you the names of the songs. I just knew, oh, I know that song. But what I thought was like really interesting was that guy opening, Keith Wallen, how he came out. And I'm looking at my son and I'm like, is this Breaking Benjamin? But it says Keith in the background. Like, what's going on? And I thought that was so wicked that he like opened the show and then he played with the band later. Like, I thought that was so neat that the band supports like his solo work. Because, like other bands, they kind of like get like kind of like, pouty whenever like somebody says I'm going to go work with somebody else or do my own solo act, and they seem like they were like so supportive of him.
Yeah, they really were. And I think that is just generous all around. So,
Right.
of
Right.
Ben Burnley, like, him being the lead singer and then him being like, oh yeah, you just go ahead and open up. That's awesome.
Right. Right. And then what'd you think about that like U-turn that David Draymond took when he started talking about mental health, and this has turned into a group therapy session? Like, I wasn't prepared for any of that. You're like at a rock concert and it just like it was great, but it just got so like emotional for a while when he was talking about addiction and depression and the rock stars that we've lost. And what was your take on that?
So I loved it. I was just like totally into it, and I love that it was coming from a guy and a rocker guy, because I feel like a lot of guys don't take. I mean, I hate the stereotype, but I feel like a lot of guys don't take mental health as serious. Like, they feel like they just, they were raised to know that they just have to like shake it off and don't cry and keep moving. And for him to be so open like that to everybody, I feel like it impacted a lot of people.
Right.
In a good way, in a positive way. However, there is a different side of it, because I was there with my husband, and he was just like, kind of, I don't want to say it like this, but like, dance monkey, like, we're not here to hear your story.
Right.
He had that kind of angle, and I'm like, no. I feel like he touched a lot of people and made them realize like it's important.
Well, I couldn't believe when he opened up and said, when he talked about Chris and Chester and Scott, the great bands like Soundgarden and Linkin Park and Scott, Stone Temple Pilots, Velvet Revolver, right? All these bands, and how we lost those guys. And then he just revealed I was close to joining them. I think he said like February, and I'm like, wow, that was literally a couple of months ago. Like, I'm like, where is this coming from? And to reveal that to the entire tour like that, I just thought it was crazy.
I did kind of like Google a little just after that, and I guess like he had gone through like maybe a divorce or something. But yeah, and then he's like, my son kept me here, and that's what it's all about. Because I mean, I feel like they don't feel like they have anywhere to go, and I feel like the other guys maybe just kind of lost sight of the family part, and they were just so far into like their own misery, which is sad,
Right.
They couldn't like pull themselves out. So I'm glad he pulled himself out, because it was an amazing concert, and I'm glad he was there for a reason, for like people to hear that.
Right. Yeah, I felt that way. Like, I was like, when he said that this will be the largest therapy session that you've ever been in, I thought that's the last thing that you would expect when you go to Disturbed. Like, being at our age, we're thinking, I just want to survive the concert, and that's the last thing I expected. So
I know, and I like how he said for the lights one.
Right.
You know the light one. He was like, if you have your lighter. Remember
Oh
back in the
yeah,
day when
and
we go to
nobody's got a lighter.
concerts?
They're like light the cell phones, like light the cell phones
Yeah.
up.
And everybody's like, a lighter? What's a lighter?
Yeah,
for?
the
We got
younger
these
people are
cell
like,
phones.
"Why would I have a lighter?" They're just drinking liquid deaths everywhere, and I'm like, they're holding up their cell phones with a liquid death that are $5 a pop. So, I mean, besides this concert, like, I saw that you were talking about Medicine Man being there and how he has been on your journey of concerts over the last couple of decades. Like, did you spot him, or like how'd that come about?
Yes, it was so funny. I clearly remember I was like 18 and I went to a whole concert
Oh
with
boy,
Courtney Love.
Courtney.
Yeah, and I was standing outside and there was like this dude, and I remember my friends being like, "That's Medicine Man." I'm like, "Oh," like I'm in my mind, I'm thinking like, "Oh, he brings medicine, or he's like selling stuff on the side," or I didn't know why they called him that. But literally, like stabbing westward, any concert I went to, any rock festival, the guy was there. Lollapalooza, or not Lollapalooza. What's the one in Zephyr Hills
Oh,
that they used to
livestock.
do?
Well, it's
Livestock,
livestock in Zephyr Hills, and now it's like converted to 98 Rockfest inside. But
right, right.
livestock, yes,
I mean, the
yes,
dude was everywhere, and I kind of figured it out. I looked, and he had just turned 72, and I was
72.
yeah, 72, and he's still going to concerts. That guy like is awesome. And I started seeing him when I was like 18, so he literally was my age going like when I first started seeing him to go to rock concerts. And he
Right.
probably went years before that. Like he's an icon. It's amazing.
So he's inspiration to keep going for the next like 3 decades for us, like in our 70s. If you think about it, like if
Yeah,
he's 72 and he can still be doing this, and he's been doing this since we were kids, teenagers, like wow, that's incredible. So
I know, and I took a picture of him. It was so funny. Like I snagged a picture and I was like, boom, and I showed one of my husband's friends, and he goes, didn't that guy who used to be in the Kiss band? And I go, no, it's Medicine Man.
that's Gene Simmons right
That's
there.
what he looks like.
Paul Stanley. Yeah.
Fucking around.
I went to a recent show where I felt just so old and out of place, but it was such like a journey. Like it was at the Orpheum, and my son and his friends drugged me there, and they had I don't know if you ever heard of them. They had like several bands, but the headliner was Carcass, and then they had Municipal Waste and Sacred Reich and Creeping Death, and wow, that was an experience. Like the Orpheum, it was all outside, and we're out on like a concrete pad. I was not prepared for this. I was wearing Nautica like boat shoes, and then there's nowhere to sit. And I just see this younger generation. It was just a blend of a crowd. Like you see the young generation, and they're holding their liquid deaths, and they're moshing, and then you see old people, and they're staring at the young people, and that
Oh, they
band,
still mosh? That's good.
they
Makes
do.
me feel
Like
good.
whenever I went to livestock, there was a guy that was moshing in a wheelchair. They were actually holding a guy up in a wheelchair, and just like he was like crowd surfing in the wheelchair, and everybody's just holding this thing up, and it's just moving all over the place. But
And that's when respect was happening. Like that's when moshing had respect. And
right.
then it turned into like you're getting dropped because I remember going up and
Hmm.
someone dropped me and I was like, did I break something? Like it was
Right.
so stupid.
Right. No, they were actually doing like friendly moshing, I guess you would call it. Now the band, one of the ones I mentioned, Municipal Waste, they did a thing where they pumped up the crowd and said we were, I think, in Atlanta, the concert before, and they tell the crowd, I'm sure you can beat Atlanta, and then they warn security, like, security, you better be awake on this next song, and they tell everybody to come in, and next thing I know, just bodies are flying like over the railing, and I'm like, I can't believe we're in 2023 and they're still doing this stuff. Like it was just amazing, but I'm like, wow, I just really felt it for like days on end after that. So
You're
so
like, back in my day,
back in
tell
my
me
day, yeah. Speaking of back in like our day, like what do you think, like as far as like we're both like Gen X, and you hear like the kids today, like they're wearing like the vintage shirts, like Nirvana shirts, and they say that some kids like think Nirvana is like a brand, like a fashion brand. They don't even
Oh,
know that
that's
it's a
true. Yeah.
band, right? So, what do you think about that? Like the Gen X music versus like what's going on today? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So first of all, like when I do see a kid wearing one of those shirts, I tell them to name me a song from them because that ticks me off if they're wearing it and they don't know it. And I'm like, name me a song from that. And if they do, then I'm like, all right, high five, you passed. But a
Besides,
lot
smells
of
like Teen
times they're like,
Spirit.
yeah, no. A lot of times they're like, I don't know, and I'm like, you failed. Sorry, get out.
Right.
Because a lot of times it is like a brand to them. So I don't know. Our music definitely was I guess iconic. Just like in the '70s, they had all that music too. Like our grunge, like Nirvana, the
Right.
grunge. I definitely think that people do probably think it's a band, but they just know it was something really cool.
Something really cool. Right.
Yeah.
And you
Like
see,
in
like,
high school, do you remember? I don't know if you remember my backpack, but I had the Grateful Dead on there, and I thought it was cool. I
right.
didn't listen to a song until after I had already put it on my backpack because I just knew it was cool.
And I remember seeing that backpack, and I could not name a song. I thought they were like hippies that ate Ben and Jerry's all day. I'm like, who are those guys right there? So
I know, and my aunt thought I was like smoking doobies and stuff because I had it on my backpack. She's like, I know what that is.
I
I'm
know what
like,
you're doing.
I
You're
don't even
like,
know what that is.
you're like, I'm just drinking Zimas with Jolly Ranchers inside them, so I'm not smoking doobies. So
The DNA.
what's crazy about us in high school is my son will ask me this. He's like, Kurt Cobain. I mean, he's so if you think about it, he was like the John Lennon of our generation. And these kids today listen to Nirvana, listen to Kurt Cobain, and he was asking me like when he passed, like what was it like? And I'm like, I remember just going to high school and there was like, people just upset, like we were numb, we didn't know what to think, like
I remember where I was when I heard it on the news.
that's
It's
so
kind of like where people knew where they were with Kennedy, you know?
yeah, that's weird because I remember exactly where I was. Like, where were you whenever you found out?
So my brother was just graduating naval boot camp in Orlando, and I was in my older than him, brother's RSX, and we were driving and going to like his boot camp thing, and it came on the radio, and I felt like literally a void inside me because when I was 16, that's all I listened to. Like I just went through all of them, and like when I learned about Bleach and all of those albums, like before it, I just took them in and soaked them in. Like
Right,
it was crazy.
right. Yeah, I remember it was so crazy because we used to go to that club that they would allow teenagers in, like that club DNA, and
Right.
I was literally counting change to have money to go to the club. Like this is back when you could get in for, a few dollars. And I'm like sitting there going through change trying to count it up to make sure that I could have money to go to the club. And next thing you know, it's MTV breaking news, Kurt Cobain has passed away, and I just remember like you just didn't believe it. You're like I don't understand what happened. It was just so shocking. And I remember them talking about how this guy will just go down, like that he's going to be remembered. And at the time you think, okay, yeah, we're going to remember it, but it's so crazy that we're in 2023 and his music is still so relevant, and there's just future generations that are going to be listening to it. So I don't think we kind of realize like what we had whenever he was around.
No, I know for sure we took it for granted because I remember putting off seeing them. I'd never saw them, and I know you know this person. I think it was like Melissa Miltner or something, or
Right.
someone Raylena and whatever hung out with, and she had a Nirvana, and she's like, I just saw them in concert, and I'm like, oh, I'll probably catch them another time, and another time never came, and it's like I always kick myself for that, and she had the shirt and everything from the concert, so I'm sure that's valuable.
That's okay, because I turned down seeing Pearl Jam for like $10 and went to a Tesla concert instead. I had money to see Tesla in Lakeland with Firehouse opening, And I still have never seen Pearl Jam, and until I see them, I'll never live that down. I'm like, you know, like Eddie's still around. He's one of the few left from that whole, movement of that whole grunge Seattle movement. And I tell people, I'm like, yeah, I remember I was like short on money, and me and my buddy James wanted to go to a concert, and we're looking, and like Tesla is in Lakeland, and I'm like, they were really popular at the time, and I'm like, and then there was like this unknown Pearl Jam with like a song called Alive, and I'm like, I think we'll go to the Tesla concert. They seem like they got a lot of hits, and totally passed on Pearl Jam for like they were playing in St. Pete, and I'll never live that down. So
yeah, my brother went to a lot of the Pearl Jam concerts, and I was a little bit younger at the time, so he never took me. But I like regret not like making him take me. Like,
right,
you better take me. I'm your little sister. You gotta take me, because
right.
I've still never seen them either.
So
never.
So what do you think about, like, we like talk about all these bands, and it feels like we're just talking about the past? Like, is there anything today, like any music that you like that's like a band that's maybe under the age of 50 or 40? Is there anyone out there, or anyone you can think of?
Yeah, like I was trying to think of this, and I'm like, because I'm old, I'm like always forgetting, like,
not that old.
But because I'm old, I always just tell people that I'm like, I'm old, I forgot.
Right.
I totally Sarah got me into like going to these concerts, and they're really good live. Like if you go to listen to them on Spotify, they sound good, but like live, there's all these new little bands that are just amazing live, and then when you hear it, you're like, yeah, it's good, but it's not like, when you're in the crowd, it's different. And it's like, I don't know how, but they found me. They go by IDK How.
Oh wow.
And it's just like their presence and everything. I've gone to see them like 2 times with her, and they're really awesome for like a newer band. And then, I mean, other than that, I think I still like Five Finger Death Punch, and
yeah, they're still good. Yeah,
I don't know how old that is. I don't know how new you want it. So.
Yeah, I think they're still young. I've been listening to like a band called, well, they've been around, Beartooth, and before we talk,
is good. I've heard them. Yeah,
I
like them.
And I was trying to find us like new bands before we talked about this. I wrote down Inhaler. I saw they're like some new band. They kind of remind me of U2 a little bit. And then there's another band called the Miserines, and they sounded pretty good. And I actually wrote down, I got this from Loudwire. It's like the top 5 rock albums of 2022. And I thought you would think this list is interesting. So we talk about back in our day, but number 5 was actually Ozzy. He was like listed at number 5, Ozzy Osbourne, with Patient number 9, and I guess he did like a whole bunch of songs with like different artists, and then they had Ghost down at Impera was number 4, and then Slipknot was it's called The End So Far, that was listed at 3, and I don't know about number 2. It was Machine Gun Kelly. I mean, I guess that's rock music.
I don't know. I wouldn't classify it as that.
Right. They did. They're like Machine Gun Kelly. It's called Mainstream Sellout. I don't listen to him. I'm like, I guess we'll call it rock music. We're kind of like digging on that
Stretching.
one. Right. Right. And then what was crazy is the Red Hot Chili Peppers. They were number 1 on the list. They actually released 2 albums in 2022. They did Unlimited Love, and then it's Return of the Dream Canteen, and they were both produced by Rick Rubin, that guy that's done like all those rock bands. So I thought that was pretty interesting that like the Chili Peppers, those guys were around back at the day in what we were talking about with Nirvana and the whole movement. The Red Hot Chili Peppers were like right there.
Yeah, I have heard the Chili Peppers' new stuff. I get the advantage as long as it doesn't have bad words in it, I can listen to music all day.
Right, right.
Because I'm, outside and we just jam out. And
right.
The guy that I work with plays them.
Right, right. And I think we saw them together. They were I don't know how many times you've seen the Chili Peppers, but I saw them in Orlando whenever the Foo Fighters opened for them. And the Foo Fighters, man, I felt like that they were better. They were good that night. You
I
know,
think was I with you at that concert?
I think you were. It was like a large
Yeah,
group of
because my
us.
brother went.
Yeah, it was like this big, large group, and I'd never seen either band, and I thought Foo Fighters were just like on point. Chili Peppers were good, but
Yeah,
Foo
they stole the
Fighters,
show.
yeah, they stole the show. So
For real. Yeah, I agree with you. I remember that, and then I was like, wait, were you there with me?
yeah, I thought I was there. Yeah, it was fun. So so anyway, I just thought it would be a good call to just catch up with you and talk to you about the concert. I'm glad you had a good time, and you've been awesome.
All right, thanks for having me. This was exciting. I like talking about bands, and yeah, I go to so many concerts a year, like 2 or 3. I think that's it. That's all I can afford now. It's ridiculous.
Right, with the prices. So, all right, well, just keep on rocking on, and thank you for listening to the Silence So Loud podcast. Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Bye.
All right, everyone, I want to talk to you about my friends at Bunker Depot. That's Bunker Depot. If you need rifles, handguns, shotguns, optics, ammo, eye, ear, and body protection, maybe a hat, maybe a shirt, go check out my friends at the Bunker Depot. They're located at 2004 South Parsons Avenue. That's in Sefner, Florida. Or their phone number is 813-816-2865. Go talk to my buddy Jason Buck. I tell you what, they want to educate, train, equip. A prepared community is a safe community. So check out their website or just go check them out there, like I said, in Sefner, Florida. And tell you what, they got a deal for you. If you like, share, love, subscribe, whatever, this podcast, the Silence So Loud podcast, or Bunker Depot, they're going to put you in a raffle for a free box of ammo. That's 9mm ammo. They're going to raffle off a free box of ammo if you mention Bunker Depot or mention this podcast. Just check out their site. You must be 21 to enter that site. And like I said, they're going to give you a free box of ammo. That's for 9mm. So just check them out. The Bunker Depot. Go see my friend Jason Buck. All right, that was my friend Denise. She's been a good friend of mine for a long time, and that was a great conversation we just had. Now let's talk about sports. Let's talk about the Rays right off the bat. I said this before. Definitely looking like we're going to get the wild card. Division would be better. We're only 2 games out. But when you lose that many starters, it's going to be a tough thing to overcome. But I believe in Kevin Cash, and I believe in the guys that we do have. So hopefully with the 2 Zachs and the Glass now, like, and the new acquired pitcher Aaron, I hope that we can figure it out. And I talked to a good friend of mine, James, and he said, don't forget about my Mariners. My friend James lives out in Washington, and he said, don't count them out. And I'm looking at them, and it looks like they're definitely like in contention, that they're probably going to get the wild card, which would be great. And I also read an article that they're going to do a 6-man starting rotation in Seattle. You got to, part of my lack of knowledge on the West Coast. I'm over here on the East Coast, so a lot of times those West Coast teams, they play so late here, I may like overlook them. So if you're out there, help me out in the comments maybe about what is this 6-man starting rotation that the Seattle Mariners are going to do. I thought that was pretty interesting. Also, I touched earlier in another podcast, I talked about Wander Franco and said give it a Google. And honestly, I'm ready to say that again. Just give it a Google, because I don't want to sit here and annihilate or shred him without knowing all the facts. But I will say this, it doesn't look good. It does not look good. A lot of people are saying that we should just prepare ourselves, that Franco will probably at least not be with the team, probably won't be in the MLB anymore. And if that is the case, how sad that is. I know that the issue with him is way more important than baseball. Way more important than baseball. And it's such a downer from a fan's point of view. I remember when he made his debut, I was actually going to eat that night, headed to Hooters, and I found out he was going to be in the lineup. And I remember just rushing in, like, to see his first at bat, and he drew a walk. Then later on in that game, he hit a home run. And it was just so exciting from a Rays Ray's point of view, it felt like, okay, we got our next Evan Longoria. We have this guy locked in for the next decade. He's a shortstop. He can switch hit. He's just so promising, and just such a letdown. Such a letdown. And I hope that there's more to this story, but if there isn't, and he is what he is, I mean, shame on him. And you got to also applaud the Dominican Republic for taking this thing serious. I know the authorities are looking into him, and I'll be dead honest. If what they're saying is true, I don't want him on the team. I don't want him on the team. I would rather finish last place than to have what I view as garbage on the team than to overlook these huge accusations and these just criminal activity. It's just not worth it. Baseball, yes, it's very important, but it's just a bigger issue, and I might talk about him in the future. I'm kind of like at a loss for words because I was such a fan of this guy, but if it's true, I want no part of him on the team. And I think as Rays fans, we're used to losing players for definitely in a different type of scenarios to trades and free agency, but we move on. I always make the joke that if you're a Rays fan, you don't get a jersey with a name on the back because you never know. We're Rays fans. We've seen so many guys come and go. That's just how we do it in Tampa, and it's worked. And like I said, I got the utmost confidence that Kevin Cash and Kyle Snyder, probably the best pitching coach in the league. I know I'm biased, but I believe he's the best pitching coach in the league. I mean, if you can't figure out how to pitch with him, then I don't know, because he can just figure it out. So the Rays will keep on rolling, and like I said, I'll try to dig into the Mariners a little bit and check out what's going on with them, and just exciting times because we're less than 40 games now. So we're looking into, like, we're headed into the fall. We're going to get some baseball playoffs. Tonight, we have the Buccaneers and Jets game. Kyle Trask going to get the start. I know a lot of the offensive line is not going to be in there for him. A lot of the starters are not going to play. We just lost a wide receiver. Russell Gage is out for the season. So, it's preseason. Should be an entertaining game tonight to watch. I wish Kyle Trask all the best. I think that it's starting to look pretty obvious that Baker's going to be the starter whenever you head into that Minnesota game. I would be shocked if Kyle is the starter at this point. I think that this offense is kind of like Baker said, it's made for him. I think he showed great leadership skills, but Kyle Trask definitely has earned his argument. I feel like people could argue that he should be the one. Baker seems like one of those players that people kind of either love him or hate him. I think he's exciting. I thought he was exciting when he came out of college. I thought he was exciting with Cleveland, and I know he's been with a couple of teams in a short time span, but I hope that he's a one. And that's all we're really going to talk about with sports. I want to thank y'all again for the views. We appreciate it. Thank you for the support. And thank you for listening to the Silence So Loud podcast.